Concerning developments at the border.
What's going on with the federal government and our border? What about our COVID relief response? What are your political aspirations after being governor? How are we doing becoming a top 10 state? Stop. 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 Among all of the political infighting, chaos, conflict, and confusion, one of the greatest business success stories in American history gets glossed over in the noise. I still want to know, how did Governor Kevin Stitt start with just $1,000 and build a $20 billion residential mortgage company operating in 42 states? I want to know how our governor took Gateway from a single office operation to a nationwide successful company, then a merger to establish one of Oklahoma's largest banks with 166 mortgage centers, 1,600 employees, and $2 billion in assets. What kind of vision, discipline, commitment, skill set, and business acumen does it take to create one of America's most successful businesses?
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, man. It's really such an honor to be here with all of you tonight, and want to thank all the elected officials. I don't know if they've been introduced, but all my friends in the House, the Senate. Will you stand up and be recognized real quick? Thank you. And Jesse, and to all the city elders, what you do, it's just amazing. Well, we're in the middle of kind of a new, the Iowa caucus. New Hampshire's coming up. And a couple years ago, they were having the Democrat National Convention. And the press was walking in, and they look over, and there's a little boy there. And he's selling puppies. And he's saying, "Come get your Democrat puppies here. Get your Democrat puppies. Come get your Democrat puppies." And they thought, oh, isn't that cute? And they go on in. Well, 2 weeks later, they're having the Republican National Convention. And the press is walking in, and they look over, and they see a little boy, and he's like screaming, "Come get your Republican puppies here. Get your Republican puppies." And they're so curious. They're like, man, I wonder if that's the same boy that 2 weeks ago was selling Democrat puppies. So they walk over, and they said, "Are you the same boy that was here 2 weeks ago?" He's like, "Yes, sir, I sure am." And they say, "Well, what changed? You were selling Democrat puppies 2 weeks ago, and now you were selling Republican puppies." And he said, "Well, now the puppies have their eyes open." All right, just making sure I was in a Republican audience. That's all I was doing there. But honestly, it's so encouraging to see a room like this of God-fearing people that stand for our values and our way of life and are representing Oklahoma so well. So it's so encouraging. You're literally the backbone of the Republican Party all across our state. I just love what the city elders stand for. Back in 2018, like Jesse was saying, I really felt called to run for governor. And I'd never been in public office before. I was super, super scared, very nervous. But, when God calls you to do something and you step out in faith, he just uses ordinary people to accomplish amazing things. And so I just want to encourage you, if he's putting things on your heart, just to go for it. Because it's, sometimes our biggest fears keep us from stepping into what we're called to do. And one of my biggest fears was speaking in public. If you can believe that. So when I felt called to do it, I kept praying, God, make the fleece wet. I want to be for sure, make it dry again, make it wet again. I mean, I kept going back to the Lord in prayer, and he kept saying, I've already told you what to do. And so I just stepped out in faith and ran. But I think that's what our founders envisioned, is they never thought politics would be like a profession or a career. They thought it'd be successful business people or farmers or ranchers or teachers, and they would leave that for a time to go serve their state or their country, then they'd come back to the private sector. And so I'm so honored to serve as your governor. And when I was running, if you remember, we were having teacher walkouts. Remember that? $1 billion budget deficits. Well, I am so proud today to let you know that Oklahoma is leading with conservative values all across the country. People are looking to Oklahoma. We hit our lowest unemployment in Oklahoma history just recently. We have the largest savings account. We had almost zero money when I took over. We have the largest savings account we've ever had in state history, over $5 billion. We are backing the blue. We're unleashing Oklahoma energy. We're putting our students' education back in the hands of parents. And right now, we are top 10, not per capita, but top 10 in people moving to the state of Oklahoma for the first time ever, okay? People are moving here. Guess what state we get most people from? That's exactly right, California. But they very quickly, they go, no, Governor, we're moving here because Oklahoma, we see what's happening. We believe in the pro-business, pro-family policies that you're doing. I was one of the few governors in the country that refused to do a mask mandate statewide. And in our efforts to make Oklahoma, I believe, one of the things I always talk about is the vision to be top 10. I think we take second place to no other state. This is the best state to live, to work, to raise a family. And so, I've cut taxes once, and you might have seen I just called the legislature back in for a tax cut, which I want to talk to you about. But I want to back up just for a second. Did you know your federal government receives the revenue, the amount of income that the federal government receives is $4.4 trillion, okay? $4.4 trillion. Well, how much do you think the federal government spent last year? You would think they would spend only $4.4 trillion. They actually spent 6.1, okay? So they spent $1.7 trillion over what they made. And the point is, you gotta have a governor on spending, right? If it's unlimited, why didn't they spend $8 trillion or $9 trillion? And remember this, we also right now have a $34 trillion deficit, okay? All right, well, I'm a mortgage person, right? That was my job. Everybody, when they first buy a house, y'all know what a 30-year fixed mortgage is, right? Okay, it's kind of depressing at first because a lot of that goes towards principal, but there is a little bit of your check each month when you pay your mortgage that goes to principal, right? Most of it's interest, but a little bit is principal. But at the end of 30 years, you're going to have your house paid off. Well, right now, our federal deficit, we're doing interest only, okay? So that $34 trillion is never going to be paid off, and that is up to $1 trillion now. So a quarter of our revenue is just interest-only payments, okay? So that's bad enough, but they're still spending $1.6 trillion and adding to that. It is totally out of control. I know you know that. We've got to hold our congressional delegation responsible for getting our spending under control. So now back to the state side. I believe it's time to give Oklahomans another pay raise, okay? When we have excess revenue, okay, what are we going to do with it? Like last year we had $1 billion excess revenue. If we have $500 million this year excess revenue, what are we going to do with that? We can either spend it, we could save it. Well, pretty soon Oklahomans will be like, Governor, how much money do you need in savings? You've already got $5.4 billion, right? So let's give that back to the taxpayer. It's not the government's money, it's your money. But there's some people in Oklahoma who think that your race determines whether or not you pay taxes. I'll say that again. there's some people in Oklahoma who think your race determines whether you pay taxes. Now, what I mean by that, yesterday at the Oklahoma State Supreme Court, there was a case that was argued called the Strobel case. The Strobel case, it was an Indian woman that lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And remember, an American Indian is an Oklahoman. I'm actually a Cherokee, right? All 6 of my children are Cherokee. So this woman that lives in Tulsa made the case that she does not have to pay state income tax in the state of Oklahoma. Well, here's what I think. I think your race should play no factor in your tax bill, okay? I mean, it's like I'm in a twilight zone having to say that, honestly, because we're all Oklahomans, right? Taxes are for public services. And listen, I don't want any Oklahoman to pay income tax. I'm trying to get us on a path to zero. As we have extra revenue, trying to get that down to zero. So, in the other example, right now, we are literally in a jurisdictional and a geographical fight for who has authority over our state. And I want to, everybody's heard of the McGirt decision by this point. And I just want to give you this example that the attorneys for the tax commission argued yesterday, and they explained it this way. And I thought it was a great way to explain it. They said, listen, the Navajo reservation that's in Arizona, all right? The Navajo reservation, if you're a Navajo Indian and you live on the Navajo reservation, yes, you do not pay taxes to the state of Arizona. The attorney said that's absolutely true. And if you tag your vehicle on the Navajo reservation, none of that money goes to the state of Arizona. Absolutely get it. That's what happens on the Navajo reservation. What they don't tell you is the state of Arizona does not patrol the reservation. Their highway patrol doesn't patrol the reservation. They don't build roads or schools or hospitals on the reservation. You can't apply the law on the Navajo reservation to all of eastern Oklahoma and to Tulsa, Oklahoma. It just doesn't work. That's what I've been trying to say, and that's why I will not give an inch. I'm standing up for Oklahoma's future. And sometimes I get a bad rap. I get it from some people that say that I'm just being, persnickety or whatever they say about me. But the bottom line is we've got to have one set of rules regardless of your race, your heritage, or where you live in the state of Oklahoma. But, back to why did I become governor? I was wrestling with that. Like, Lord, why did you call me to run for governor? And one of the reasons I think that I'm in this seat is I promised to sign every piece of pro-life legislation that hit my desk. And I had no idea when I became governor that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned, and I was going to be able to be the governor that banned abortion in the state of Oklahoma. And we protect life in the womb in the state of Oklahoma. Here's some stats. In 2021, there were 5,950 babies aborted in the state of Oklahoma. And since May of 2022, there has been 0 reported abortions in the state of Oklahoma. We've also expanded access to pregnancy and parenting resources. We're simplifying the adoption process. We launched oklahoma.gov/life to connect pregnant mothers and expecting families with resources that enable them to choose life regardless of their circumstances. And nobody wants to talk really about this, but I believe the fight for life, it starts with healthy families and healthy marriages. Did you know we are living in the most fatherless generation that we've ever seen? In 1950, just 5% of children were born out of wedlock. Just 5%. By 2017, that grew by 1,700%. Now, approximately 50% of kids are born out of wedlock. And it's really a staggering statistic, but we can begin to fight back by declaring that the best place for a child is with their mom and their dad. And I want to recognize my mom and dad who are here tonight, John and Joy Stitt. So I so appreciate, Dad was a pastor in Norman, and the godly heritage that he instilled in me and my two brothers, and my mom pouring her life into us boys. I love you guys. You know, and the other thing, when I think about poverty and the Heritage Foundation, they've done a lot of studies on what causes poverty. And there's a couple things that, regardless of race or anything, if you graduate from high school, get a job, get married before you have children, and don't do drugs, those 4 things, you are not in poverty, okay? A man and a woman married in a home, poverty is less than 5%. A single parent, the poverty is close to 40%. It's that simple. It comes back to, like my dad used to say, the answers are in my $20 Bible. But we know that our kids are our most valuable asset, so it's essential that we give them every opportunity in the state of Oklahoma to succeed. And so this past year, I'm so proud to sign the best school freedom, school choice bill in the entire country. We gave every single family, regardless of income, up to a $7,500 refundable tax credit to go to a school of their choice. It's that simple. I tell people, listen, the rich already had school choice, right? But school choice shouldn't be just for the rich. It should be for every single family. We just injected competition into our school system. I'm telling you, over the next 20 years, you're going to see more and more charter schools and Christian schools and Catholic schools pop up across our state and then create competition. And I'm so excited to see what happens with our education system in the state of Oklahoma. Because I believe in protecting kids from the dangerous leftist ideology that sometimes is plaguing the country, and some of the bigger school districts are teaching some just nonsense. And I'll tell you who's also fighting hard for you on that factor is Ryan Walters, our superintendent. You know, over the summer, I became the first governor in the country. I get shocked always when my team's like, you're the first governor to do this. But to take executive action to protect the rights of biological women. I signed the Women's Bill of Rights alongside my friend Riley Gaines. She's awesome, by the way. And the reason I had to do that is I saw other states, just the nonsense, sending men to women's prisons, men into women's shelters, and I said, that's not going to happen here. So we had to define what a woman was in the state of Oklahoma. One of my favorite bills I signed last year was the Save Women in Sports bill. And I was like, that's pretty common sense too. We're not going to let biological boys compete in girls' sports. I had so many college track stars and girls that played volleyball and soccer just thank me for protecting their scholarship, and said, they told me, Governor, I could not have gone to college without this. And the Washington Post, they interviewed me right after that, and they were like, Governor, you signed this controversial bill. I was like, first off, it's not controversial in Oklahoma. We know the difference between a boy and a girl. I don't know what's wrong with you guys on the East Coast. And we stopped the dangerous, this was crazy. I mean, so common sense. We stopped the dangerous sexual reassignment surgeries on our youth. I mean, the left's ideology on this is just crazy. I just don't get it. all we're saying is that we're not going to let a minor mutilate themselves and have permanent damage. And, we're not against any one person. If you're an adult and you're doing an elective surgery, go knock yourself out. I'm not going to let taxpayer dollars be spent on that, but we're certainly going to protect our kids. And then this year, or I guess it's last year now, we flipped over the calendar, but I was very, very excited to sign the executive order and send it to our higher education and said, we are going to kill DEI programs in the state of Oklahoma. Because, again, pretty common sense, we're going to base admissions on your merit, not on your race or the color of your skin. This is a meritocracy. And then furthermore, I also said, let's focus on first-generation kids or kids from poor neighborhoods. Just don't make it about race, right? Let's make it about merit, because we want to make sure that every kid understands that there's no such thing as equal outcomes, but we believe in equal opportunities for everyone. Every kid is precious, and God has a unique design and ability for each and every one of them. I have 6 kids, and they're so different. My wife and I have been married for 25 years. If you have any advice for teenage daughters, please call me after this. But we want to teach our kids that life's sometimes not fair. You got to work hard. You've got to make it happen, right? And so teaching our kids that somehow there's equal opportunities equal outcomes for everyone is just a bunch of nonsense. In Oklahoma, we're being frank about the crisis. Have you guys been seeing it at the southern border? You seen what's going on? It's unbelievable to me that our federal government is not doing the very basic things to secure our border, to know who's coming across our border. I sent troops last year down to the southern border. Governor Abbott called and asked for troops. We sent them down there. I went and visited them at Eagle Pass and also in El Paso and met with Governor Abbott. But the Texas National Guard, they're literally having thousands and thousands of migrants a day that they're apprehending. It's unbelievable. The thing that shocked me the most is they're having to go across from where the border security is and actually build a wire down right at the water's edge, because the feds are saying if they just get over the edge of the water, then they're here in the U.S. So Trump, it's very simple. We have to go back to President Trump's policies. All President Trump said was, if you want to seek asylum into the U.S., that's great, fine, but you're going to stay in Mexico until your court date, all right? Okay, I've talked to all the borders people. Here's Biden canceled that policy day one in office. That has created the mass migration that's happened, because now, if they just touch the border, they're released into the U.S., they're given a piece of paper that says, show back up in 2 years for your court date. How many of those you think come back in 2 years? And then they're given where do you want to go? They're given a taxpayer-funded bus ticket to go anywhere they want in the U.S. It's just unbelievable to me. Plus, the apprehensions that Governor Abbott told me about that were happening on the terrorist watch list that are coming across the southern border. It's just unbelievable. And that also brings me to the point that we have got to stand with our allies, Israel. On 30 days after the war began, Governor Abbott and I flew to Israel and met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, and they wanted us to tell the people of Oklahoma and the people of Texas what we saw. And I'll tell you what I saw that I thought was it's just mind-boggling. You've heard of the Iron Dome. Most of us probably have heard of that, okay? That is their defense mechanism over their country. And so when a rocket is launched into their country, it intercepts it explodes in the air, okay? They've had something like 50,000 rockets launched at them from their neighbors just over the last 15 years. I think like 9,000 since the war began. All right, so their normal life, their paradigm, they send their kids to school just expecting to hear these sirens go off and then go take shelter. And I'm like, that is not normal life. What would we do if Mexico was launching stuff into Oklahoma? We would go down there and we would destroy it, right? So we have got to stand and allow them to root out these terrorists. I went to the hospital in Tel Aviv and I met young people. I met a 23-year-old girl. I took a picture of her because I have a 23-year-old daughter. And she was shot through the leg. And she told me her story. She was at the music festival when these terrorists showed up. And by the way, Netanyahu told me, make sure you tell people that terrorists are not just riding in the back of a truck with a machine gun. These are well-funded, well-trained militaries without any conscience whatsoever, okay? And they showed up and mowed down these college-age kids just at a music festival outside, hunted them down. I don't have time to tell you the whole story. Then they hid in this bomb shelter, which is kind of like, it looked like a tornado shelter that we would think of, a concrete, and about 40 kids, and she happened to be at the back as they came in, threw grenades, and then opened up with machine guns on them, and she hid underneath some dead bodies until she was escaped. I personally talked to her at a hospital in Tel Aviv. And there is some evil in this world that we have to eradicate. We're literally at a crossroads in our country, and it's time for our leaders to start making decisions, and godly decisions, and the right decisions for the future of our country, the next generation. Too many of them think about the next election and what's going to be polling right. Our kids and our grandkids deserve to grow up with the same liberties and freedoms that we all did. And our Constitution guarantees the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that looks different for every single different person. And I tell people all the time that what we do in Oklahoma may look different than people in New York. That's great. We don't want anything to do with New York. I'm the governor of Oklahoma, and we're gonna believe in our freedoms here. But we all deserve to live out our American dream. And you know, sometimes we can all get cynical with life, and man, it just seems like everything's messing up. But you know, I want to leave you with Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary for doing good, for in due time, and I have to remind myself about that too. In due time, if we don't give up, we're going to reap a harvest. And I want to encourage us all to do that because you guys are on the front lines. But leadership is about making the tough decision, not what's easy or convenient or when the wind's at your back. It's about making the tough decisions, even when the news media is against you, which most of the time the news media is against me. So, and in Oklahoma, I'll tell you this, we're making the right decisions. We're doing our part to protect the border. We're slashing government spending. We're getting our fiscal house in order. We're bringing common sense to the conversation. And we all know that another 4 years of a radical Biden administration, it spells really disaster for our nation. Reckless spending, they're so soft on crime, they've got wide open borders, and really an effort to destroy families and indoctrinate our kids is what I'm seeing. But as long as I'm governor, Oklahoma is going to be a God-fearing, freedom-loving, common-sense state. So, thank you guys so much for being in the fight with me. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Oklahoma. Thank you so much.